John, fantastic to have you on the show. You are a free speech advocate, even if what people have to say upsets or offends others. Explain why this is actually so important for Australians to defend.
Good evening, Corey. Okay, so look, what I would say is that free speech is the mother liberty. So if we don't have the ability to openly express ourselves, we lack the ability to advocate for our other rights. Now, the most cherished document in human history about civil liberties was the US Bill of Rights, and that was 10 amendments to the US Constitution, which was just enacted a couple of years after the Americans embraced their constitution. The very first of those 10 amendments is the right to free speech, and everything else flows from that. Now, the best thing about free speech is, and in the speech I gave in Parliament this week, I gave a number of justifications for it, but the best one is, sometimes there is a very good idea, like for instance that the world is round and not flat, and it's outside the Overton window and the political class doesn't like it, but it just happens to be right. So if we tolerate all ideas, good ones and bad ones, correct ones and incorrect ones, we'll have a free marketplace and the best ideas will triumph in the end. So all we have to do is accept that we're going to let people say things that we strongly disagree with, and that's a small price to pay.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I was a publican, there was a bloke who used to drink in the front bar, and he always used to say, after a few schooners, never be frightened of the truth. And it seems that we are a bit frightened of the truth, in this country at least now, or in the Western Hemisphere. You moved a free speech amendment in those part of your discussions last week. What was it you actually sought to do, and what was the result?
Well, it was twofold. So it was the second reading. We're going to be debating it early next year. But it was, I have moved an amendment to the New South Wales Constitution, which will guarantee the right to free speech in the state of New South Wales. And we're looking to embed that into the Constitution, but we're then also wanting to double protect it, double entrench it by saying it can only be overridden if there is a referendum of the people of New South Wales. Now, all we have done with this, I have unashamedly cut and pasted from the US First Amendment. We've used the same language. So if we do enact this, then there are edge cases in free speech matters. We've got over 200 years of the US Supreme Court adjudicating some difficult areas around free speech, like copyright, defamation, etc., etc. So, Corey, I'd like to use your show to encourage other parliamentarians in our other state parliaments, and in particular in our federal parliament, to move a similar bill to amend the Constitution to protect free speech, because all across the world in 2023, and in particular in the English-speaking world, there is this increasing assault on our ancient right to free speech.
Well, I agree with you there, John, and state parliaments, of course, can, I think, amend their state constitutions. Federally, would have to go through another referendum, and I can't see the Greens or the Labor Party supporting free speech. They want to shut everyone down. But, if all the states did it, a lot of pressure would be brought to bear, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Look, if it doesn't get up, it's still a very good opportunity to make the case for free speech and to keep the pressure up, okay, and to win public support. So that's why it's a good exercise in all of our parliaments.
Yeah. Now, you must be surfing a bit of a wave globally. Libertarians around the world are cheering on their successes, most notably the election of, what I'm saying, anarcho-libertarian Xavier Milei as Argentinian president. Now, I've read about this anarcho-libertarianism. I don't really understand it. Why do you think it's so important for Argentina, and why would it be a good fit for Australia?
Okay, well, I think I can summarise it quickly for people. So on the spectrum from, say, authoritarianism to maximum freedom, we have over on the freedom side, we have people like Milton Friedman, Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and in this country probably John Hewson's Fight Back package. They were good leaders, but they were classical liberals. And if the whole world was governed by classical liberalism, that would be probably a pretty good thing. Now then, further along the spectrum of freedom is somebody like Ayn Rand. Now she says, look, well, the classical liberals say, look, government is good, it's just got to be small. Ayn Rand says, look, government is something that we have to tolerate in three very restricted areas, which is defence, the courts and the police. Now then, at the absolute purest end are people like Javier Milei, who believe in anarcho-capitalism. And they say, look, over a couple of decades or so, with democratic consent, we could entirely phase out the state. And I am increasingly sympathetic to that view. Now, it is an unknown ideal, but I think that that is the direction that we do want to head in. If we want to maximise human genius, we can all the things that the government has done forever, things like education and the healthcare system, people have got it into their heads that only the government can do that. Well, I think the government does it very inefficiently and a lot of bureaucratic burdens, etc. But I think the free market can solve all these problems in a much, much better way. And I think that an anarcho-capitalist state is the ideal that we want to aim for.
You know, I'm increasingly leaning towards this whole government out of our lives regime, and so I call myself now a conservative libertarian. I can't imagine getting rid of the state entirely, but gee, I'd love to see us get rid of it in so many areas. So that's going to be one of the challenges. But here's the thing, John. Do things have to get really bad, like they have in Argentina for 7 or 8 or 9 decades? It's a wealthy country otherwise, naturally, and through resources. But it's been horribly mismanaged by government. Do they have to get that bad and close to collapse before people realise that government is actually their problem?
From the mid-1800s to the mid-1900s, Argentina had very good government. It was very small government, and it was consciously wanting to be a small government. And Argentina absolutely boomed. And if we go back to the 1940s, Australia and Argentina had similar world-leading living standards. Now then, Argentina has fallen into a socialist mess. They have almost all of their leaders. Argentinian politics is complicated, but they have largely been big state socialists all the way through, and cozying up to big business, of course. Now, and Australia at the same time, by and large, except for the last decade or two, has been a pro-free enterprise country, and our living standards are still very high. Argentina is very, very sad. You've got what once was a first world country. You've got about 25% to a third of people, 25% to a third, 30% of people genuinely living in poverty because of socialism. So yes, they have now. I mean, Javier Milei is not only a hardline ideologue, and I think an ideologue with the best ideas, but he is very charismatic and very compelling, and he's very academic. So yes, they are at a mess. They have endorsed him emphatically, 56%. He doesn't have control of the Congress, but there's still a lot that he can do. And I think, Corey, don't cry for me, Argentina is out. Inspire me, Argentina is in.
Hey, I like the idea of that, and I'll be watching, as I'm sure you will, with great interest to see how this works, because it could prove to be a model of reconstruction for the rest.
Hallelujah. That's what we want,
John Ruddock,
Corey,
thanks so much for your time and joining me on Bernardi tonight.